One of the most extraordinary questions we ever ask children is also one of the most common. What do you want to be when you grow up? Think about it. We ask it at family dinners, we ask it at birthday parties, and even at school. And children answer a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. It's become such a normal question that nobody has ever stopped to question it, despite the fact that the answer may shape the next 50 years of a child's life. Now, let me tell you my own story. A few years ago, I proudly told my grandmother I wanted to become a diplomat. She looked at me and said, "Maria, why don't you become a doctor instead? It's safer." Now, my grandmother loves me, she wanted the best for me. So I asked her why. And she replied with something I've heard many adults say, because doctors are successful. And that's when I started thinking, what if we've confused safety with success? What if, without realizing it, we've created what I call the myth of the safe career? The idea that there are certain careers that automatically get you success, and if you choose correctly, everything will work out. But is that really true? Because when we look around, we don't see successful people because of their job titles. We see successful people because of who they became. We see traits like curiosity, leadership, discipline, creativity, and resilience. In other words, identity. The strange thing is that the myth exists almost everywhere. When a child says, "I want to be an engineer," people smile. When another child says, "I want to be a lawyer," people nod. But when they say, "I want to be an artist," "I want to start my own business," "I want to be an actor," suddenly the questions begin. Are you sure? What's your backup plan? Can you really make a living out of that? It's fascinating because we don't judge dreams equally. Instead, we rank them. Without realizing it, we've created a hierarchy of careers. At the top are the careers we consider safe, and at the bottom are the ones we consider risky. And what's even stranger is that nobody has ever taught us about this ranking. We just grew up believing it. And that's where I believe we've been making a huge mistake. The problem, ladies and gentlemen, isn't the career we choose, it's the social script we follow. So let's test this idea. If I asked the same number of people inside this room to describe a successful person, many would mention things like money, status, fame, degrees, or even titles. But if I asked that same person to describe someone they deeply admire, they would mention something completely different. They would talk about that person's own identity and impact on society. Isn't that interesting? The qualities we admire most are often the ones we measure least. And that's why we've been measuring the wrong scoreboard. In schools, we measure grades. In careers, we measure titles. And in society, we measure status. So let's measure in a familiar way. Since we are in the World Cup season, let's imagine measuring our lives the same way we measure a football game. We count every pass, every tackle, and every foul. But then at the end, we completely ignore the final score. It would make no sense, and the game would end up pointless. Yet, that's exactly what we often do. We measure achievements, but we forget impact. We measure income, but we forget meaning. We measure success, but we forget fulfillment. And perhaps that's what the myth has been doing all along. It has been convincing young people that their future is something they have to find, as if somewhere out there is one perfect career, one perfect path, and one perfect answer. And if you choose correctly, your life will be great and everything will work out. But I know that many of us realize from experience that life does not work that way. The future isn't a place waiting for us at the end of the road. It's something we shape every day through our actions, our choices, and most importantly, our mistakes. Think about the people who changed the world and inspired us the most. Do you recognize them? On the left, we have Andrea Bocelli, who we all adore and love because of his mesmerizing voice. But what we don't know is that he was pressured to major in something he was not passionate about, all because of social norms. And on the left, Nadine Jabir, who is a famous Lebanese scriptwriter, she shares the same story. She had to major in law instead of film, all because to meet her parents' expectations. Their stories remind us that being a lawyer or being a doctor is not the problem. The problem is the pressure to choose them. So perhaps that's the real myth. The myth that a career can predict a person's future. Because the future was never something to be predicted. It was always something to be created. Thank you.